We're going to get started, first of all, with writer-executive producer Jon Favreau and director-executive producer Dave Filoni. Okay, this is our first live-action Star Wars television show. Can you guys talk a little bit about what is so appealing about that to you guys?
As somebody who grew up with Star Wars and really having been formed around what I experienced when I was little with the first film, there was some aesthetic to it that I really gravitated to, and my whole taste in movies was probably formed in a big way from seeing George Lucas's original film, and I learned about cinema through the lens of that film, because my father would explain to me, no, this is a lot like samurai movies, or this is a lot like westerns or World War II films, and so that became my inroad. And then there was a whole Power of Myth with Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyers that was filmed up at the ranch, and that opened me up to the mythic structure and the monomyth and my understanding of mythology and storytelling. And so to come back and return to this with the freedom that this new platform affords, because there's nothing to compare it to. Nothing has been on TV other than the holiday special, and the idea of telling a story over more than just a couple of hours, told every few years, opens us up to this novelization of story, and a return back to the roots in many ways of the Saturday afternoon serial films that my parents' generation grew up with.
Absolutely. Dave, do you have anything to add to that?
I just found the whole thing exciting. I think as a kid growing up, you watch Star Wars and you think, I would watch this every week. And as television got more and more into genre over the years, and like I remember when Star Trek Next Generation came out and the promise of better visual effects on television, and it took big leaps. And you know, as somebody that's always been into fantasy science fiction, you were always waiting for a moment where you thought that what the images on television were as good as what you were seeing in the theater, but there was a big separation on it as a kid. And now I think it's gotten so close, and you know, it's one of the thrilling things. We can make something like Star Wars because technology has advanced, and that's one of the dreams that George had. Even when I worked with him on Clone Wars, he would talk about the future being streaming, the future being episodic serialized Star Wars, because like you said, it's what influenced him. So yeah, and it is cool to get to help make it. So
Please welcome Pedro Pascal, Gina Carano, and Carl Weathers.
How you doing, Pedro?
That's the first thing I heard.
Did you get some sleep, or did you just power through?
I powered through.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I'll sleep here.
Hello.
What was the moment you realized, I'm truly in the Star Wars universe? Pedro, what was it for you?
Well, putting the helmet on, for sure, which they had handy at our first meeting, and to see if it would fit. It fit perfectly, and I guess, you know, very simply, trying the costume on for the first time and looking in the mirror. You can't see very well through the helmet, but I got a pretty clear impression. And if you grow up, you know, playing with Star Wars toys and obviously seeing these movies, and then you're staring at yourself and you are the image of that kind of childhood imagination, it's a super pinch me moment. Quote me exactly. Super pinch me moment.
Is that a hashtag?
Super pinch. Super pinch. Hashtag super pinch. Mandalorian.
I think for me, it was my first day on set. Seeing the whole costume come together, and John and Dave came, and you know, they made such a big deal out of, oh my gosh, look how great you look. And I was like, wow, this is really great. But it really honestly was one of my favorite unforgettable moments, being on set, seeing the other cast members, but be it behind a helmet or a creature or this one.
Or this one.
This one right here. And then actually my first day on set, I was on a blurg. So I was up on this this big thing, and I was just like, okay, this is it. This is my life now. So it was incredible.
Wow, and John did sort of a slow roll on me. It's like okay, I've got this thing that I want to talk to you about, and okay. And first of all, I mean, I'd met John, so we had a lot of interaction, even though it wasn't like really personal stuff. But we'd had a lot of interaction, and I really admired him, and I'm sincere about that. I really admired him because this guy is super smart, ridiculously smart, about much more than just making movies. So that was number one. So I'm fascinated, and I'm saying, okay, those are the kind of people I want to be around and know, so I can maybe like grab something that he's got that I really admire. But anyway, you know, the thing is, when we finally had the meeting about it, and not unlike Pedro tells the story, when you walk into that room, that conference room, and all this art is on the walls, and he is so passionate about it all, and it's all magnificent. I mean, it is some of the most beautiful artwork you could ever see. If you were a collector, you want to go through and take pieces off the wall because it's that beautiful. And then started telling me basically what this was and a little about this character. And it's like, are you kidding me? I'm working on something that Disney is going to be behind. I'm working on something that Jon Favreau is like marshaling through. And I'm working on a Star Wars kind of invention. And then I get a chance to meet Dave Filoni, and now it's like, we're in good hands here. We're in really good hands. So that was my introduction, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
There are a lot of names that you guys have pulled in. I don't want to miss anybody. So Bryce Dallas Howard, Taika Waititi, Dave Filoni. I mean, can you talk a little bit about what their contributions are?
And it's Dave's first time directing live action.
Long overdue.
And Rick Famuyiwa also did a couple for us.
And don't forget Deborah Chow.
And Deb Chow, of course. She's who's going on now to do the Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
She's a powerhouse.
So she came into Star. So this is really, you're going to see, I think, a lot of people that are working in this incubator of story and technology and Star, you know, really people who got together because they love Star Wars, and this, I think, enthusiasm that seems to be very contagious, not just with the people on the couch here, but the artwork he's talking about. You know, that's Doug Chang, who's been part of a lot of people who came up through the ranks over the years since the prequels, and all of them slowly, like Tom Sawyer, coming together to paint the fence. And there's this real enthusiasm that's very organic as we're telling the stories, and it's a very collaborative environment. You know, we talk a lot about story, and I write most of it, but that's just a jumping off point for the directors to be very involved and very collaborative, and all the people who are involved, whether it's ILM or Lucasfilm or within the cast or Mandalorian, and so it becomes this really fun collaborative thing that takes on its own life and own personality. And I think you'll see with each of the directors, unlike a lot of television, the directors are really being given an opportunity to have authorship over it as though it were a film. So it's been very exciting for us to have that kind of environment to come to work to every day.
Yeah, and John, you posted a photo of George Lucas and yourself on set. Can you talk about that experience? Who was on set that day? What'd you talk about?
Carl was there that day. I think Gina was there that day. I know for sure this guy was there because I met Dave because I was up at the ranch mixing Iron Man, and he was secretly working with George on Clone Wars before anybody had ever heard of it. And I showed him Iron Man. He showed me Clone Wars. I was like, if you ever need a voice on this, I'd love to do it, which turned into me playing a Mandalorian named Pre Vizsla on his show. But what's so nice is that George had worked with him for, 10 years?
Almost, yeah, 8 to 10 years.
And so they had worked together. So a lot of what's wonderful about working with Dave is that continuity of vision.
This has been a real special thing for me. It's something that I really, doing live action, I became interested in it from working with George, and the way that he talked about how we should shoot Clone Wars, and he would always speak in live action terms. So the terminology was always around me, and I didn't always understand how to apply it. Over the years, though, I got a little better with it, and he's so steeped in technology, George. and pushing technology, previs systems, stuff like that on Clone Wars, that it just became a part of the language of filmmaking for me as well. And working with John is really natural. It kind of continues that because he's very forward thinking with technology and using tools to help enable greater storytelling. And I saw that, in Jungle Book, just incredibly, so very inspirationally, and with the work that he's done in Lion King and whatnot. So for me, it was a great opportunity to work with somebody that kind of works in a similar vein, but I could really be challenged, and John has challenged me, I will say that, creatively, storytelling-wise, and you need that sharpening. You need to improve and continue a legacy of, frankly, being mentored. I see it as very Star Wars, this whole path for me.
Well, I think at this point we're going to open it up to the audience here.
Hi, congrats guys, that looked amazing.
Thank you.
For John and Dave, you mentioned Taika Waititi. He's obviously also voicing a character in the show. Can you talk about what he brings to the show and what it's like to work with him?
Well, when you're bringing in a director like Taika, that he's clearly doing it because he wants to, because the guy is just such a powerhouse right now creatively, and I think everybody's really discovering what a talent he is. People who follow comedy knew about him long ago, or independent film, and now he's just he's really enjoying a wonderful run. And so when he shows up, it gets everybody excited because it's a fresh energy on the set. He finds opportunities for humor. He brings his style of humor to it, but he also is a fan, and to me that was the bottom line prerequisite. You had to love Star Wars, and you had to want to do something great and help invent this new thing. And to have Taika in there as somebody who was a battle-hardened veteran who could come in and just has tremendous instincts, and to work with the actors and to bring that, for me, to just be able to work with him. I had known him for a while, and from the Marvel world, we had been sharing experiences that we had had, but to actually be on the set and to witness what he did was tremendous. And then to have him do the voice of IG-11 and bring that specific tone to that character, but also the tone to what he directed was fantastic. I'm grateful to him for that.
First of all, congratulations on the show. The footage was awesome. I'm curious, the making of the first season of any show, you're learning the infrastructure of how to put it together, what you can accomplish in the time frame, et cetera, et cetera. For each of you guys, what did you learn making season 1 that you are now putting into season 2?
Well, I learned a tremendous amount every day, and I think for me, one of the things is, I was on set every day the whole season, so I learned watching every single one of our directors. I learned watching our great cast, everyone behind the scenes. I treated it as, boot camp for me to learn this type of filmmaking, but then I tried to offer the knowledge that had been passed on to me by George for Star Wars things and just the way that he liked to shoot things. But it definitely has affected the way I look at, a day. What can I accomplish in a day? That's a big difference for me, filmmaking-wise. We arrived on a back lot, and the DP, Greg's like, well, the sun's up, we gotta get going. I'm like, oh, right, because it's gonna go down. Animation, we don't really have that problem. So, you're getting on 6 o'clock and everyone's getting squirrely, and you're like, the sun's going down, the sun's going down. I'm like, right, then we're screwed. And the whole set's going down. So there's a bunch of very tangible things that are gonna happen. And, I love having this experience and knowing the difference between animation. There are advantages and disadvantages to each one. I don't, frankly, at this point, prefer one or the other. I like both experiences, and they're both unique. But I do love, and I've talked with Kathy quite a bit about this as she's asked me the differences that I've experienced. There's something about the concrete nature of live action. It's incredibly spontaneous. It's going to happen right there in the moment, and then that's it. Where I can tweak a tiny eyebrow or a tiny smirk or give Ahsoka just a little bit of a push in a direction that will dramatically change the character. You have to get all these variables to kind of come together and be aware of it. And it's not like you're controlling any of it as much as you're guiding it. And, John would stand with me and speak to this, you're looking at everything all at once. Where in animation, it's like a recipe that I can keep adding little ingredients. And you have a lot of flexibility, thank God, in digital. In post, we can do a lot. But capturing that moment right in front of you is, I think, the real magic of it all, and something that I've been craving to try. And luckily, we have an incredible crew and cast that can capture those moments, as hopefully you saw in the footage. But yeah, that's what I learned the most.
So I wanted to ask, you tease in the footage that the Mandalorian never takes off his mask. So when are we going to see it, and is it gonna
Do you really want to know that?
Yes!
You don't
Why
want
would you hire that
Do you
beautiful
want to
face
come?
and not
We're
see
wrapping
it?
Christmas presents. We're wrapping Christmas presents. You
The
really
real
want to come in
question
the room?
is, do we ever take off our masks? Well, the stunt doubles are essential to every large production, just so you know, like even for the strongest people or agile ones. So none of it can get done without the incredible stunt work. I mean, especially, what did you guys see today, like 27 minutes or something? You saw like a whole clip? You have no idea the amount of star power from every department that goes into making something like this. From, the person that is like, working on the shine of my shoulder to the person who built the entire ship that we're shooting on, or the whole set. I've seen some pretty big and I haven't seen anything like this.
So I noticed that the footage we saw, there were a lot of references to the Star Wars holiday special, Life Day.
Yes, Life Day.
And of course, that's where we saw our first Mandalorian.
Yes, that's right.
So can you talk about why you wanted to draw that, connect those little dots?
I didn't realize there was a lot of. I guess there is. We did. Well, definitely it was the gun, right? That the pulse rifle. Just because. Here's the thing. I wanted to have it. We're starting with new characters, right? Everybody, there's all sorts of conjecture. Is this really is it going to really reveal that it's Boba Fett all along? Is it a character we already know? We wanted to start fresh with a whole new group of a whole new set of characters that you never met before, and so there are ways that, even though we have new characters and you could jump in because it's chapter 1, we wanted to make sure that if you were watching and you knew about it, and this is where Dave has really been a treasure trove, because we tried to effort to work stuff in, whether it's humorously, like making a reference to Life Day, or a reference to a prop that has been appreciated by a core group over time, just putting those little Easter eggs in, or big movements in the story that reflect storylines in either the legends or in canon that people have known and had, and by the way, all of the animated content that Dave's been working on. How do you weave all of it together so that you don't have these divided, segmented parts of the audience, but you could start to bring it all together and coalesce it in a way that creates an overarching narrative and rewards the people who've been putting the time in over the years since they were kids growing up with it.
It's very fun. Like, I would love, John would write these scripts, turn them around. We would talk sometimes, because I'd be in San Francisco, we'd be on the phone, and we'd just start rallying and come up with a whole plot for an episode. Kid you not, on the phone. And he's like, oh, okay, it's in my head, I gotta go, boom. Okay. And then like a day later, here, read this. I'm like, oh, wow, there's a script now. And it was cool. I mean, it's really fun. And it's fun reading, John's take on Star Wars. And I would read something like, oh, I see the holiday special's back. And I give him a hard time about it, because...
Well, it happens.
I've been
it's
through
there.
that. Right, yes, I know. It's a long way of saying you really like the holiday special. And I've accepted that. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We know you had the gun in the show because you liked it and you wanted to have it.
The cartoon
And now
holds up.
it's in your office. And I get that. Like, I've never experienced that before. Like, you say, I want to design this, I'm going to have this, and then someone literally makes it, walks up to you and hands it to you. I haven't had that in animation.
That's what's been really great about it. And there is a discipline about it of let's make sure that we are
Authentic.
authentic, disciplined, cohesive, and that no matter where you're coming from and what your background in Star Wars, you know that what we're doing is not being done. It's being done out of. We've really deliberated over it and discussed it and thought it through. And so if we depart in any way, we know we are, and but it's with a plan. And part of it also is, what's the big arc? You know, that's the other thing.
That's the fun thing is the plan, and like there are some things where I'm like, oh, I wonder what people are gonna think of this. But then we think about what you're gonna think about it, and then we get a couple moves ahead of that, and then we're like, okay, then we'll see. Because you might know this move, but you don't know that move, and that's just the fun part. Especially in series,
Yes.
we can make that work even better.
We
And
could
it's-
create a
it's fun for
dialogue.
us.
Yeah.
Well, I think I can speak for everybody when I say we'd like a holiday special, part 2, so.
There it is.
I am open to
There
it.
Wow. Well,
There
thank
it
you guys
is.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for all your wonderful questions.
Thank you.
Mandalorian, Disney Plus, November 12th.